Hey YouTube, it's your girl lasheavibez, and I have a very special guest here, a highly requested guest, Cousin Nicole, Nurse Nicole. Many of you know when she's on the channel, we are discussing COVID updates. I have several videos with her sharing the knowledge. She's coming in with a lot of great updates. I did receive several requests from her, including myself, just wanting some additional updates regarding the COVID and what's going on with the booster shots and all the children. I will leave additional links to the videos that we've done previously, especially with the holidays coming. We do have a holiday where she gave some suggestions. I mean, if things have changed, I'm sure she'll speak to that in this video. But Nicole, let's go get rolling. You don't need no introduction. You're like a regular on the channel. And when people see the title, they'll already be aware of what we'll be discussing, the COVID update. So I'll let you go ahead and get started, and then I'll get into my questions.
Thank you, Kim, for the introduction. I hope everyone is doing well and their families and continuing to remain safe through this pandemic. A lot has happened since we've last talked. So let's start off with talking about the vaccine for adults. I know there's been a lot of controversy in the media right now with many jobs mandating vaccines for their employees. Actually, some businesses firing, including the healthcare industry, firing providers and nurses for not getting the vaccine and refusing to be vaccinated. It's in our sports arenas where players are being benched because they refuse to become vaccinated and they are not being paid their salaries. So this is a lot going on in reference to adults being vaccinated right now. And, the liability, I think, is really what a lot of the businesses are thinking about. If unvaccinated people come to work and around or play sports and there's no mandate, they're not making things mandatory and maximizing safety of others, and that meaning those who own these businesses. In hospitals, for instance, we care for those that are sick. And a lot of times, when people have chronic illnesses, such as they may be battling cancer, they may be dialysis patients, and many other illnesses, they tend to have a weakened immune system. And when your immune system is weakened, it makes you more vulnerable of contracting illnesses and viruses. So they're more vulnerable to and more contagious in reference to being able to contract coronavirus if they're around someone who tests positive. So that's why, these businesses are looking at the liability aspect as well and safety of their employees and their customers.
And then I know a lot of corporate companies are going based on the Biden mandate, where there's a mandate for, a lot of the corporations to have their employees all vaccinated by December the 8th. And if they're not, then they don't, get any severance payments or any type of unemployment if the job is lost due to them not being vaccinated.
Yes, and that is correct. Biden did do a federal mandate for all federal workers in all federal establishments and agencies to become vaccinated. So what they're doing, because I actually work at the VA hospital, which is a federal agency, we had to go online and complete documentation stating that our vaccination status, and then if it was identified that we would not become vaccinated, the requirement is that you have mandatory testing weekly, and if you are not working on site daily, if you do plan to go to your place of work 3 days before, they're requiring you to be tested and provide the results of those tests before you can come on the grounds of your workplace. So they're very strict about that. Actually, over the past week and in the upcoming weeks, I'm in a supervisory role. We are actually learning exactly the disciplinary action process for those employees that do not comply with this mandate and are not compliant with the requirements for that weekly testing. So,
But
a lot of...
is there anything that's required for them to even come to work? Like, do they have to have where they gotta, their COVID test was negative?
So it just depends on their role. Again, I work in a hospital. So we are having appointments. We are an inpatient hospital. We have patients and nurses and providers and doctors and, all different professions and ancillary staff that we have that are there to take care of veterans. So we have a huge facility where we need our employees to be on site. Not all, but we do have, those that are in non-administrative and some clinical roles that should be there on a daily basis. So that's why, the mandate is out there. And it's not, again, I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, but you have postal workers that are federal workers. So many other establishments and federal agencies, FBI. You have inspection agencies. You have the National Institute of Health. You have Washington, D.C., if you think of all the agencies that are there, Department of Justice. You have, all those House of Representatives. You have your federal judges. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The hundreds of thousands of federal employees that are actually out and working for the federal government. So it's a mandate, and I can understand people have their rights, but when you work for a certain private business, private agency, not only federal but sometimes states are mandating the vaccine. State hospitals and state businesses. So it goes beyond. Again, people have their rights. I'm not against, their beliefs, but I also, want to ensure that you think about your family. Think about if you become infected with this virus. I've known many, 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 many people that are young in their 30s and 40s who have died. And majority of those that are dying are the unvaccinated. When we just recently had the surge of hospitalizations, 90% of the people that were in the hospital were those that refused to get the vaccine. We are burying mothers of small children, fathers, grandparents, because they just refuse to get the vaccine. And see, what the vaccine does, you can still become positive and contract coronavirus if you have the vaccine. The vaccine is only 60% effective. However, your symptoms will be a lot less severe if you were vaccinated, and the likelihood of you requiring hospitalization will be less as well.
Why do you think people are still on the fence?
Your kids, you want to be here for your kids, your family.
Why do you think there's a lot of people still on the fence about getting it? Why do you think there's a lot of people that's still on the fence about getting it?
You have some people that say it's control. The government's trying to control us. Or it's the mark of the beast, meaning they making it more biblical, like they're trying to put a chip in our bodies. You have some people that they just feel that, it's their right and they shouldn't have to be forced to have to get a vaccine.
You know, my main
So,
concern is the let's speak on how are the cases now? Like, have we gone down? Like, how are things looking? Because I know a lot of stuff is starting to open back up, travel and everything. I know like there's a lot of places that still have like I know like in Jamaica right now they still have curfews and all that going on. So I know there's still a lot of restrictions in certain part of the country, but how are the cases in the U.S.? Have we gone down? Because I know things are really starting to open up and people are starting to get back in office.
so the cases have begun to go down. They're down 50% than what they were 2 months ago. But don't think that we are not still in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, if you have had anyone to recently pass, these funeral homes are still very, very busy. And I'm speaking in reference to is a cremation. I've known of recent deaths where to get a loved one cremated can take up to 3 to 4 weeks because of the delay.
Right.
Here in North Carolina, at our coroner's office, they had to bring refrigerated trucks because they could not fit any more bodies down in our city morgue. So the cases have gone down for now, and I think a lot of people have gotten lax. Let's just
Right.
think about winter coming. Not only do we have winter coming, but it'll be flu and pneumonia season.
Yeah, I wanted you
People
to
will
speak to
not be
that.
outdoors. You'll have more activities and people gathering and congregating indoors. And what happens when you have more people congested indoors, less circulation, we will see those cases rising again.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people without masks and at all these events, and I'm still for the most part quarantined. Like I haven't really got back in the midst of doing a lot of things that I usually do. Yeah, yep, you're right. Because I was going to ask you. I know it's flu season. I hear the coughs and the chokes, allergy season, and all that. And I know a lot of people are starting to get the flu shot. But what about the booster shot? I know right now a lot of the more mature adults are getting it, like the elderly, are receiving the booster shot right now. No, there has been no real mandates of other groups receiving the booster shot.
So right now, the push is for just Americans to get the first vaccine. We still have 54 million Americans that still have not received the first initial dose of the vaccine. We're trying to save lives. And in reference to the booster, initially when the booster was released and approved, FDA approved, the booster was for 65 and older, and those with those chronic illnesses that would make them high risk. Now the booster, and actually the only booster that is approved is for Pfizer. And then there was talk, if you have the other vaccines, right, Moderna or Johnson or the Janssen, you can get the Pfizer booster. But I think a lot of people are hesitant, and they, within days, the Moderna and Janssen or Johnson and Johnson booster will be approved by FDA and have CDC guidelines for administration as well. I highly recommend the booster because I don't know if it's out there and people have watched updates in reference to the news with this virus. But we had the Delta virus. Now there's a Delta Plus that is running rapid in the UK. And there have been cases of another strain, this Delta Plus, here in the United States.
What? But then I had heard of another one. It was called the MU or the IM or something like that. Like a month ago.
I'm not sure about that. I know the talk is the Delta Plus.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, that's not, we don't have many cases in the U.S. just yet, but over in the UK, this is this new strain that has arisen.
And what about the children, Nicole? I mean, the children are getting the COVID like nobody's business. And I know last time when it had originally came out, the younger kids were not getting it, and now a lot of the children are getting it. And I know that the vaccine was not, when I last checked, was not available for children that were under the age of 12.
And that is correct. Yeah, well, you have a lot of children that are back in school now. They're around children now, and I know in reference to a lot of the school systems, they were pushing for the teachers to be vaccinated, but just being congregated, kids are touchy, wiping their noses,
Having
holding
their
hands.
mask down.
They're just a little more intimate and not as cautious in reference to being germophobic and touching others. And social distancing. So that's why you have these kids that are becoming infected, even though they're wearing their masks, and the teachers are hopefully encouraging them to wash their hands and sanitize. But it's just a hard population these children to have them try to take the necessary precautions. And you got one teacher with 25, 30 students. That's a lot of responsibility and limited eyes on the kids to keep them as safe as possible.
Well, I know a lot of the schools here in a part of Atlanta that we stay in, they offered the virtual school. A lot of the children, are home or being homeschooled right now. So when will the vaccine, is there any talks of the vaccine being available or anytime soon for the 12 and under children? Do you know about that?
Yes, and the vaccine is to be released and approved with guidelines for November the 4th to be administered to children age group from 5 years to 11 years old.
Okay. All right.
And with the trials that I've seen here, actually through Duke University Hospital, they had trials of children taking the vaccine, and there were several doctors that work at Duke who volunteered their children to go into the trials. And basically in reference to side effects, the main side effect mentioned was a sore arm. Other side effects, just as adults, you can have the tiredness, you might become feverish. Again, the sore arm, headache, but those are usually, the first 24 hours after the vaccine, and usually they subside afterwards.
Would the children have to get 2 shots as well, or how does that work for the children?
With the children's dose, they will receive a third of what we receive in the adult dose. But yes, they will get their first vaccine, and second vaccine will be 21 days later.
And which vaccines are available? Is it the Pfizer? I don't think they're doing the Johnson & Johnson anymore. Is it the Pfizer and the Moderna? Are there 2 options, or is it just Pfizer?
From what I heard, definitely Pfizer, and I think the Moderna will be available soon as well.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit on flu season. I know you had discussed that before and saying how the hospital's prepared. I had no idea that you guys did all that to prepare for flu season. But with the flu season and, COVID still going on, I mean, how are we considered to be in flu season right now? We're almost in the beginning of November.
Yes. October flu season starts and extends all the way until April 1st. And so last year, because of the mask mandates in a lot of the states, and then if those that were working, going into the office, they also had mask mandates. And then, a lot of the restaurants had social distancing and limited capacity and occupancy to stay open. That allowed a lot of safety and minimized the transmission of flu. But this year, the mask mandate has been lifted. They've relaxed a lot of the restrictions in reference to restaurants, malls, and different establishments and businesses. So we will see a rise in cases in the flu this year, as well as, especially during the holidays, the rise in cases of the coronavirus again.
Now, I know a lot of people get the flu shot. Is there any, or have you heard of anything where somebody who's fully vaccinated and then taking a flu shot as well? Any side effects or any issues from them people?
No. I did have a coworker. She got and I would have known, I don't recommend doing too much at one time. But she took the flu shot and the booster the same time. And she was ill the next day. With the booster, one of the major side effects that I've heard several complain of was a severe headache. And then I had some where they said they were so tired and just, feeling a little bad the first day afterwards. But I had some say their lymph nodes were a little swollen and a sore arm. Then some of my coworkers said they didn't have any side effects but a sore arm.
Wow.
So everybody,
Different.
symptoms vary, but no, I haven't heard of any issues with just receiving the flu shot of anyone that will be fully vaccinated. I actually haven't gotten my flu shot yet. But even before this pandemic, when I would get my flu shot, I always ensured that I stayed hydrated, drank plenty of fluids, and I usually take a dose of Tylenol for the first 24 hours. And other than a sore arm, usually I don't have any side effects. And I'll do the same when I get my booster as well, which I probably won't. Probably get both. I'll probably get the flu vaccine first, or the booster first, and then probably right after Thanksgiving go and get the flu vaccine.
Okay. And Nicole, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience, or any information or any stats or anything like that you think that would be helpful to us?
I just want to, encourage everyone to be safe. Again, this pandemic is not over. Continue to wear your mask regardless if you're vaccinated or not. You can still test positive and contract the virus if you're fully vaccinated. So, yes, your symptoms will be less, but it's still very important to protect yourself and the safety of your family. Wear your mask when you're out, especially, I go in grocery stores and the malls, and I still see people, out, and they're not wearing a mask. Wear your mask. Hopefully, think of your families and your loved ones and consider becoming vaccinated if you're not already vaccinated. The holidays are approaching. I would keep holiday celebrations to a minimum and keep it probably, I wouldn't even say 30 people or less. I would say probably 15 or less. Please look at that video that we did the video we did last year, because I did give a lot of tips on safety for the holiday in reference to the ventilation and social distancing and just some other tips for safety around your family. But, I'm still limited in reference to travel. Safety on planes. Safety, especially traveling out the country, because you have several areas that are hot spots. And then again, we have this new Delta Plus variant that is spreading rapidly outside of the United States. And just be smart. This time next year, I hope this pandemic is over and something of the past. But it all depends on us and what we do to remain safe. We've had over 700,000 deaths in the United States from this virus and this pandemic. And hopefully, with everyone being mindful and remaining safe, those numbers won't continue to rise too much.
Well, Nicole, as always, I want to thank you for your time and all your knowledge and dropping the jewels. Like I said, I was getting so many requests, like, when are y'all doing an update? When is your cousin going to do another update? Because people were really curious about, where we stand as far as the COVID numbers and the booster. And of course, the children that are, contacting COVID at a high rate. So I appreciate all your time and your knowledge. If you're someone and you come across this channel and you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the comment box, and I'll definitely get with Nicole and get those answered for you. Make sure that you rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Nicole, is there any last words of encouragement or anything else that you would like to share before we close out?
Yes, I just, again, want to stress safety. And remember the 3 W's: wear your mask, watch social distancing, and wash your hands or sanitize. That's still important. Still stress that to your friends and family. And, I send my condolences and prayers to everyone that may be dealing with caring for a loved one with COVID or may have lost anyone close to them
Definitely.
to the virus.
Definitely. And with that being said, we're going to close out, and we'll see you in the next video.